For a lot of people, it's easier for them to make a list of their favorite wrestlers as opposed to their least favorite wrestlers. For me, it's the exact opposite, and that I can make a list of the people that I don't like as opposed to the people that I do like. Of course, I have my primary favorites in CM Punk and Christian, Dean Ambrose, and Anna, and etc., etc. But there are an elite few that I actually just don't really care for. I mean, even guys like, Bo Dallas, who I think I enjoy from time to time, or a Kofi Kingston, or even a Roman Reigns. Like, these are wrestlers that I like. Not necessarily that are my favorites, but I do like them. I enjoy them. A very short list of people, of wrestlers or on-air personalities that I don't necessarily enjoy, that I don't like. And anyone that knows me well enough knows that Big Show is leading that list, obviously, by far. And there aren't really many other names on that list. The Bella Twins are kind of down at the bottom. They really don't irritate me as much as they once did. They've come a long way, so they're kind of almost off the list. But there's few people on that list, Big Show leading it, including John Laurinaitis. Now, John Laurinaitis, the character itself, I never really liked from the moment I first laid eyes on him at the 2011 Money in the Bank pay-per-view when he got involved in the WWE Championship match between John Cena and CM Punk. One of my favorite match of all time, hands down. Not one of the favorite match of all time for me. And he was involved in that matchup, and I didn't like him from that moment. But also as a person, too. Like, even with Big Show, or the Bella Twins, or anyone else on that list of my least favorite wrestlers from any organization, these are people that I probably I can guarantee would not mind outside of the ring. Like, I love Paul White, but Big Show, maybe not so much when he's a heel, or the way that he's being booked, or whatever. It's not it's not them personally, it's the character. A lot of people can't really differentiate between the two. John Laurinaitis, I had a brief altercation with about 3 years ago, and this is what this video is going to be about. So kind of give some back history here. Back in 2011, 2012, I did a podcast with my buddy Ben Gartland entitled the Spoilers Podcast, and we had on a number of Tough Enough alumni. We had Luke Robinson, Martin Casillas, or however you say his last name. Both interviews I'm going to try to upload here to the channel at some point, by the way. I already have them uploaded, but I don't have them published yet. It's just kind of a matter of scheduling, whatever. But still, we were trying to get all these different Tough Enough alumni. We had Martin on, we had Luke on, and so I was going to try to get some other ones. So I reached out to Rima Fakih, Miss USA, and I'm talking about Tough Enough alumni. I'm talking about Tough Enough Season 5, the most recent one in 2011. Love that show, love watching it back in the network, and this is early 2012. Almost not exactly 3 years ago, but around the springtime of 2012, around the month of April. I think it was on my April break. And I'm trying to reach out to all these former Season 5 Tough Enough alumni, and I reached out to Rima on Twitter, asking her if she would like to come on the show. I enjoyed her involvement on the show. Was she the best one? Was she qualified to be there? Maybe not, but she was enjoyable. She was a likable character, and I was kind of intrigued to interview her. And lo and behold, she did end up getting back to me on Twitter almost right before WrestleMania. Maybe around March or so. This was kind of a few weeks process here on this whole story that's being told. So maybe right before WrestleMania, I emailed her, maybe in early April or right after WrestleMania, asking her, I tweeted her asking her if she'd like to be on the show. And this is the former Miss USA from 2010 or 2011, whatever year it was. And she ended up responding to me, much to my surprise. And she said, just, email this email address and send us why you want to interview me, blah, 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 blah. So I sent an email to this email address saying that I would like to interview her for the show, about her time on Tough Enough, whatever. And I ended up hearing back from her, not her specifically, but her agent or whoever, one of her producers, something like that, someone that she was associated with that handles all of her media stuff, her media reporter, whatever. You know the term for it. So they ended up getting back to me via email saying that you're going to have to call this number, have to run it by them first because we can't really clear anything. So it was kind of weird because around this time there were reports that she had signed with WWE. So I'm thinking, do I have to run this by WWE? And I'm looking at the number and it's a 203 area code. And I'm very familiar with that because I'm from the Connecticut area. And it was for a Stamford number. And they didn't say you had to run it by WWE. I don't think so. I don't remember the email exactly, but from what I can recall, they just said you have to run it by these guys first. In the talent relations or whatever it was. I don't know if it was because my interview had to do with Tough Enough, but from my understanding at that time, she had signed a contract with them, in which she ultimately did not, and she was never ended up going with the company for whatever reason. But there were a lot of there was a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation at that time that she had gone to WWE. So I'm thinking to myself, and this is right after that, I sent the email before the rumors broke out, and then afterwards when I got the email, I'm thinking, okay, maybe she's in WWE, and I have to run it by them first. So one Friday when I'm on April break, I make the call to this 203 area code, And this was never confirmed. I mean, I hate to spread lies, but I'm just telling you from what I understand based off the voice and the context of who I was talking to, why I was talking to this person. The person I talked to was the Vice President of Talent Relations, which, of course, at that time was John Laurinaitis. He ended up getting fired from that position about a year or so later, so he's not in that position. I know he's still with the company. He appears on TV from time to time. But, based off the hoarse voice, you cannot mistake it for anybody else based off the phone call. Like, at that time when I'm speaking to this person, I'm not thinking that it's John Laurinaitis. It wasn't until I hung up the phone after the phone call was done that I'm thinking, okay, that was fucking John Laurinaitis, because I can tell off the voice and who I was talking to, whatever. So I make the phone call. I'm nervous as all hell because, that wasn't when I made the phone call, but this guy made me nervous as all hell because he's asking me constant questions as to why I want to interview Rima Fakih. He's like, who would you like to interview of ours? And I said, Rima Fakih. And he said, have you ever worked with anybody from us, with us before? And like I said, from WWE, so I'm assuming this is a WWE personnel, whatever. And I said, no, I have not worked with any of your talent before. And he said, why is that? I'm like, oh shit, like why would you say something like that? So I'm thinking, maybe this kind of stuff doesn't always work out. And before all of this, before he started asking me those questions, he asked me the name of the show, the name of the podcast. Maybe he thought it was something popular. There's a lot of popular wrestling radio shows out there, and mine is certainly not one of them, especially the Spoilers podcast. Something that we did, Ben and I did every once or twice a week on Blog Talk Radio. It was nothing serious. Not that we took it lightly, but we just kind of did it for fun. It was never anything that we took, very, very seriously, that we put money into and all this other shit. So I told him that the name of the podcast was the Spoilers Podcast. And just the preface here, we never ever gave any spoilers away on the podcast. A lot of people get confused with that. It was not a insider backstage look at pro wrestling or bashing the company, whatever. We just chose that. I think it was Ben's idea. He liked the name, so we went with it. There were never any spoilers given. Which is funny because I hate spoilers, so that's why we named it. It's just ironic that we named the show that. But I guess this guy that I was talking to thought that we gave insider information away on the show. So he goes, why haven't you not worked with our talent before? And I said, maybe it's because this kind of stuff doesn't always work out. And he said, maybe it's because you give away insider information on your show, you reveal the results. I'm like, no. I'm freaking out because this guy's kind of very, very stern with me over the phone, for lack of a better term. And I'm like, no, we don't actually give away results. That's just the name of the show. It's just the name. Calm down. And I said, I just wanted to talk to Rima Fakih for an interview. And he said, okay, we're going to have to do this. There's a lot of paperwork. I'm like, I don't give a shit about paperwork. If it doesn't work out at this point, I'm thinking, okay, I'm actually talking to someone from WWE. I don't give a shit about the interview at this point. I just care about talking to this person from Talent Relations. And they said, okay, so just when we're done with this phone call, just give me a text, text this number with the information of the show, why you want to do it, who you want to talk to, etc., etc. And I said, fine, hung up the phone. Obviously, I texted it right afterwards, and of course, I did not hear a reply back and a response back or whatever. I was not expecting one. But at that point, the focus had shifted from doing the interview, because once that was all over and I knew I was going to get the interview with her, I wasn't desperate to talk to her. It wasn't like it was, one of my favorites like Jericho, who I interviewed not too long ago, or The Miz or something like that. At this point, I'm thinking, I just talked to someone from WWE. They were just pretty much bitching me out on the phone. Not exactly in that context, but that's what it felt like. I felt like I was under the in the hot seat, for lack of a better term, when I was talking to this person over the phone. So I sent him the information. Obviously didn't hear anything back. And I always joked on Twitter after that I should always give that number a call again whenever John Laurinaitis was on TV. Because, you remember if John Laurinaitis was ever on TV, his gimmick was always that he was always mysteriously texting on his phone or making phone calls, and it was never revealed who it was. So I was making the joke that he's texting me, or I should call that number when he's on Raw or something like that. And obviously he got booted off of TV, much to my enjoyment, about 2 months later when he was fired from the position of Raw General Manager. But like I said, this person never introduced themselves as John Laurinaitis. So maybe there is that small percentage that it was not him. But like I said, based off the number that I had to call, with it being Talent Relations, who they directed me to in the email, and the person picked up the phone as such, they didn't state their name, or at least I don't think so. Because if they said John Laurinaitis, which is his real name, I would have picked up on that immediately. It wasn't until after the phone call was over that I'm thinking, I think I just talked to John fucking Laurinaitis. And his voice you cannot mistake for anybody else. It's so hoarse, it's so beat up, whatever. I know he had like an accent in Japan or something like that. That's why it's like that. So you cannot mistake it for anybody else. I knew it was John Laurinaitis. I knew it was Johnny Ace. I knew it was Big Johnny. So that alone was a pretty surreal experience, and I've never liked him since. I didn't like him before that. I didn't like him during that. I didn't like him after that. So that is my story explaining my disdain for John Laurinaitis.